Thank you, Mayor Tawney. Can I begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land and recognise their elders, past, present and emerging, and in particular Colin Hunter IV for his welcome to country earlier today. To all of my council colleagues, to my parliamentary colleagues, in particular Jess Wilson, the member for Kew, and Dr Monique Ryan, the member for Kooyong. To all of our distinguished guests, to our finalists and winners, Angus, Reverend Dixon Manu, and to all of our finalists, congratulations on representing the very best of Boroondara and our community. You do us all very proud. To all of you, my new fellow citizens, congratulations and thank you. You know, in the hour or so before we commenced this proceeding, I had the great honour and privilege of speaking to many of you individually. And I want you to know how inspiring your own individual stories are. As many of you told me, getting to today wasn't that easy. It took many years. Many of you told me that it was hard leaving your loved ones and coming to a country you knew little about. And you do us proud today, and you enrich our nation so much by joining the Australian family, like my own parents did many decades ago. Thank you for choosing Australia. You might well ask now, well, what happens now? Your citizens. You will help write the future of the Australian story. We think of ourselves very proudly as a nation that is prosperous, a nation that is secure and supported by foundations, enduring as they are, of equality, of freedom, of the dignity of each and every human being. We live these virtues out every day, so much to the point where we might think they are assured. We can never assume that, even in our own community, as people like Jane Stewart and Val and Nora, Reverend Dixon Manu, and so many of you in the audience will say, there are people in our community who struggle with homelessness, food insecurity, isolation and loneliness. As great as our country is, we must do what our forebears have done and live out those values each and every day. And only then will we do those who've come before us and those who will succeed us proud. There's another insight I'd like to offer you as new citizens today. It often occurs to me that as we look around the world, just about every other continent that we can think of has hundreds of millions of people who live under the yoke of tyranny, authoritarian government that denies them the freedoms that we enjoy every single day. Many, so many, far too many, live in abject poverty to the point where corruption prevents those nations from rising up and delivering the sorts of prosperity and security that we enjoy. Many are locked in the grip of centuries-old internecine cultural and religious conflicts. Many fight every day of their lives at great risk of personal harm for basic constitutional protections that we live under and fundamental human rights that are the defining characteristic of our nation, a nation of laws and abiding traditions of freedom and equality. I say this, my fellow citizens, because I've always thought that we have an obligation, not only to each other, to those who've come before and those who will succeed us, but to the rest of the world, to prove, as our forebears have done every day, that it is possible for a modern nation to prove that diversity works. That people from all different walks of life, different religions, different viewpoints, different racial and ethnic backgrounds can come together and live as one in peace and harmony. For us, we live that out every day. We may not even notice it, but think about so many hundreds of people, millions of people across the world who look to us as a beacon. So my abiding message to you, my new fellow citizens, is reach for the sky. In this democracy, in this country, in this state, and in particular in the city of Boroondara, where we have such a fine tradition of service and volunteerism. Don't ever underestimate the power of your voice to help write the Australian story and make each chapter of our great nation more powerful than the last one. That is my message to you today. There are no hierarchies of generosity or devotion. Just know that every act that you undertake to improve not just those lives that abound you, but for your community, like those we've celebrated today, just know that no matter how big or small you might think that act of generosity or devotion is, it helps write that compelling and profound story that is the story of our nation. We have challenges as a nation. We are not perfect. And some of those have been dealt with today, and I acknowledge those. But just know that the future of our country is bright, but it is never assured. It depends on the strength and measure of our true devotion to those values that I spoke of earlier. And I know that no matter what the challenges our nation faces, we will meet them together as a community that is proud, united, and harmonious, and committed to those abiding values of freedom, equality, and opportunity that marks our great nation. Welcome to the Australian family, my new fellow citizens.